On this episode of the Wow Party podcast, I had the pleasure of speaking with Simar Bedi, the founder of Soul Recycling. Simar is leading the charge in changing how we think about recycling, believing that waste is not trash, it's a resource. He's on a mission to prove that businesses can go zero waste while also cutting costs and making a profit. We'll talk about the conflicts within the waste industry, how entrepreneurs, not politicians, are the real drivers of change, and what businesses can do today to rethink their approach to sustainability. Get ready for an eye-opening conversation about the future of waste, circular economies, and how we can all play a role in driving real change. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stefanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Today, I'm very excited to invite to the podcast Mr. Simar Bedi of Soul Recycling. Hey, we all want to recycle. And we've kind of been taught at this point, you throw it into a bin and guess what? Everything's good. Go on with your life. Buy the next new iPhone and we're all doing good in the world. But, if you dig a little deeper, you realize it's a lot more complicated than that. So with that said, Simar, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I can't wait to hear more about how you have created Soul Recycling.
Yeah, that's quite the introduction, and thank you for having me on.
You didn't start in waste management. Tell us where you started.
No, I was in my dad used to own a printing company, and I started with him, and I went to Ryerson University here in Toronto for graphic communication, right? So I was clearly not in any environmental field or anything like that, but I always had the entrepreneurial itch to do something, right? And I truly believe like the entrepreneurs will solve all the problems of the world, right? It's not your politicians, it's not any like inventor or anything. It's going to be your businessman that's going to solve all the issues in the world because we look for problems to solve for profit, right? So, I don't know, Stephanie, you want me to get right into how I started this whole business?
I do, but first I want to tell you we have something in common. My very first job, I wasn't even out of high school yet. I was working for a print manufacturer. They were actually in the packaging and printing company. So I understand like what you were seeing as early on is like, oh, there's all this print waste. What do we do with it? So
Yeah.
I had that itch just as you, but I did not get into recycling. So yes, tell me now, like how did you first decide you were going to start this company? And then what did that really look like for you?
Yeah. So when I was in the printing company, my father's printing company, I saw a lot of waste. Everything was going into the garbage. And even when we contacted waste companies, like, hey, can't all this paper waste and all these die cuts and things like that be recycled? Oh yeah, we'll send you a bin. And but the same truck would pick up everything. So nothing made sense to me. I'm like, there's a gap here. There's something going on that I don't understand. And that there, maybe the light bulb moment, I guess, or something. But I started deep diving into the waste industry, and what I found was a lot of recycling wasn't being recycled at all. It's still going into landfill. There's nothing. It was just greenwashing, right? And then I had to dig a little deeper, and what I figured was there is a big misconception here because, well, a conflict of interest is the better term to use, is because major waste companies that are also recycling, but their major investment is landfills. So their best solution is landfill, right? Because their major investments in landfill, the sales reps are sold, are told to sell the landfill product rather than a recycling solution, right? Because recycling is a totally separate industry and it diverts from landfill. So it's kind of a counteractive solution and that they don't even present. So what I understood was recycling is the kryptonite to waste industry, right? So, and I use this term or this saying often. It's like if there's a waste problem, it's like asking to big tobacco the cure of cancer. It doesn't make sense, right? So, and that's how it's just a deep hole, right? With the internet and me researching and as an entrepreneur, like, hey, this is a problem to solve. How do I get into this industry? How do I solve this problem? How do we make profit from it? Right? Because the essence of business is profit, right? At the end of the day, if you're not making profit, you're a charity. There are a lot of charities in recycling, but again, there's no incentive to recycle them, right? So I wanted to incentivize recycling. And at Soul Recycling, that's what we did. We incentivized recycling. Obviously, a lot of R&D went into it, a lot of research and development, of course. Um, and in my early days, like it was nothing but a struggle. Like I literally I'm trying to mine gold from garbage, like I'm trying to extract value from literally what you throw out, right? So it's quite the daunting task. And the way like when we did it, when I first opened up, I ended up buying the wrong machinery, leasing the wrong units, hiring the wrong employees, and literally I was doing everything. I would do sales in the morning, door to door. And Stephanie, sorry, like I'm going right into it. You want me to continue? Is there anything in between? Okay, cool, cool. So okay, good, good. So in the morning, I would go door to door trying to convince people to recycle, and they would say things like to me, "We already recycle." No, no, no. Like if you do it my way, if you separate your cardboard, you separate your aluminum cans, you separate all this with plastics, I will pay you. We'll do a profit share. No way, no way. Recycling's either that or recycling's a myth. It doesn't work. You're gonna sign us up and charge us levy and environmental fees and things like that, just like how big waste does, right? That's how they do it. And it's very hard to convince people otherwise. But of course, few that wanted to save money and then liked what I was pitching and I saw a young guy trying to do something different gave me the opportunity. But the opportunities that I would get were the dirtiest ones, right? Because it was it's what the other waste people didn't even want to do, right? So I would get the dead skunks, I would get dirty diapers, I would get everything, you name it, whatever when you think of garbage, like I've seen like I think questionable like fingernails, like it's just disgusting. And to get employees to sort through that, forget about it, right? No matter what type of automatic procedure you may have, there is still at one point handled by hand, right? So nobody wanted to work there. So I would then go door to door in the morning and return with a truck in the evening. And they would see me. Some of these owners of these businesses would see me like, "Hey, aren't you the sales guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm also like I'm the owner, right?" And they would either be like, "Oh my God, we made a mistake," or they would appreciate the effort that I'm putting in, right? So I struggle a lot, and I would then in the evening literally work almost 24 hours, like minimal sleep, because it in business, it's weird because when you're used to doing a job, you get paid by the hour. So your effort is always paid for. Where
Mhm.
this, you're putting 100% effort, I would even say 110% effort, and you might land in the negative at the end of the month. So you are paying others so you could work. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's a negative. And those are the starting stage. I was knee deep in garbage, sorting out what I could. Got the wrong machine, almost went out of business every day practically. Like I would say to myself, like, I'm done. I'm done. Every single day, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. But because you dig yourself such a big hole, debt-wise, financially speaking, and obviously your own time invested, that you keep going, right? You end up keep going not out of like motivation or anything like these people talk about, like, oh, you got to stay motivated and all that. It's pure necessity. You have no other choice. Like, I have two mortgages at that time. I had two mortgages on my house. I had to make this happen, right? Wrong machine or the right material, the wrong material, whatever the case was. I had like long-term leases locked in at the location that I was at. So hook or crook, we had to succeed. And in doing so, what I found out was how deep the waste industry really goes. right? It's just because I used to get people calling me like, hey, like, what are you doing? Who are you? Things like that. Very weird calls. I'd get people like driving by my facility, taking photos. And these are all waste guys because I was their kryptonite, so to speak, right? Like I'm educating businesses in the surrounding area of where I was, taking away business from them and doing a profit share model where the business would earn back from money back from the recyclables that we would recycle, full traceability, nothing greenwashed, and really just changing the game for these old school guys, right? It was just like to give an example of what I was going up against. It was like when Uber first came about, right? The taxi guys were going crazy, right? And I had the waste guys after me. It was just like I was the new Uber, but I was struggling, and they knew that. They knew that. It was just a matter of time this guy goes. Um, but what happened, I think I was a month away from just shutting her down. Like it was my last month of rent to pay. And then I was like, look, I'm gonna lock my doors and that's it, walk away from the business. The neighbor, not neighbor, like I would say about 5 miles away from me was a competitor. Same situation as me. We were basically targeting the same clientele, and he approached me saying, "Hey, like we're deep diving to the bottom, competing with each other, right? But our competition is actually big waste, so we should actually join forces." And we did. We joined forces, and that what ended up happening, it cut my expenses in half because we split everything, but we kept separate entities. And now he's retired and all that. This was 11 years ago. Um, but he was my saving grace at the time, right? And literally a month before I was shutting down, I couldn't tell him that when he walked in, like, hey, I'm a month away from shutting down, you know? Like, but it was literally God sent. It was God seeing me working so hard day and night, doing sales in the morning, actually processing at night, sorting at night, working 24 hours, working in a dump essentially, and sleeping in the dump sometimes. Um, and sent an angel, I'd say, just to say, hey, here's a lifeline. You could keep going. And from that moment, because my expenses were cut in half, I became in a small amount of profit. And then from there, we rippled away.
Yeah, well, if you are any fan of the whole law of attraction thing, I definitely believe that we do attract the people in our lives when we need them. But it's always a matter of recognizing that as an opportunity instead of pushing it away. And thank God you did recognize and seize on that opportunity when it came to you. Because I am also like you, where I see these recycling that is offered to us. Like I live in West Hollywood, California, and the recycling options that are offered to us, they don't make sense to me because, our recycling group in my area say, oh, yeah, you throw everything into the bin and we sort everything. And they even have these very beautiful videos online so you could watch it. And I'm thinking, I don't think it's getting sorted the way you're telling us it is. And now, of course, we have all these expose videos on YouTube where people will put trackers into like a TV monitor or a computer monitor and put it into recycling and they track it across the world to a landfill over in India or Africa or somewhere. So I believe, the consumers, the public is really being misled and lied to in a lot of ways. Like you've seen, where we think we're doing one thing and it's not that at all. So we all think, oh, we're recycling, so let's buy more stuff, right? But I really love that. I did read on your website that you were able to really turn this whole idea of just simply making stuff go away into teaching businesses that waste is a commodity, that they can earn money back, that they can actually make money from this. And in fact, there's a very popular show on Apple TV right now called The Silo. Have you seen it?
No, no, but I definitely look into it. The
Okay.
silent.
Well, the only part I'm really wanted to bring up was the fact that in the silo, essentially, civilization had to move underground, and they live in this silo, so they can't get outside. So everything they kind of had that they took with them in the silo, they have to use for as far as they know forever. So everything is important. Everything is recycled. There's a whole area of the silo where objects are recycled, they're remanufactured, they're reused. Like everything is important. Everything is, a commodity. And when I saw that, I'm like, we should live like that. We should live like we live in a silo and everything we use has to be reused again and has to be thought of as living forever. And I think we are having more of those conversations out there now because of people like you. And I thank you personally for that. So, when you were saying that you were able to partner with this person and then really take it to the next level, how were you able to get the messaging out there to businesses that this is, like you said, waste is a commodity. Like this will serve you in the long run because not only you make a couple dollars back now, but in the long run as a planet, like, this is something that will actually make money for everyone. How do you get that messaging out then and now to people and businesses?
Well, that's a good question. And to one point to that silo, that's a real ecosystem, right? That's how an ecosystem works, and that's how we should work, right? It's the circular movement, the circularity, and that's what we're trying to really achieve ultimately, right? Is an actual true ecosystem. And sorry, I know I'm going to get back to your question, but I truly believe one day we will dig up our landfills for what we've thrown in today. Because we're going to be out of those resources that we're digging up. Because remember, we're mining aluminum, we're mining copper, we're mining all the fossil fuels for the plastics, and that's going back into the ground, like unsustainably and releasing methane and everything. So we're going to dig that back up one day once we run out of those commodities from the ground. So, anyways, back to your question. Stephanie, tell me one more time so I can get back my train of thought.
Wait, I love what you just said because in my mind, all I kept thinking is we're building one giant sloppy silo of just cramming everything together in a hole. And then somebody in the future is going to have to dig it out and be like, yeah, we need this stuff. Put on your gas mask and your high-tech rubber gloves because it's like basically a toxic waste dump. So, um,
Yeah,
my
no, that's
question to you
exactly
was
it.
when this partner then came along, and you realized like you did have a business that was sustainable and would be able to become profitable to you. How were you able then to translate this messages to more businesses to kind of get your foothold in there and say, this is the way you properly recycle? Because, you offer a variety of services from the cardboard to the metal recycling to the plastic recycling. But how are you, again, able to translate this message that the way you're doing it is better? Because we as a society, I know you're in Canada, but in the US especially, if it's not easy, people don't do it.
Correct, exactly. It's like teaching a old dog new tricks, right? And especially in a company, if it's how it's been forever, that's how they like it. They go, hey, can you just cut our cost of what we're doing? That's their simple. Like, we don't want to change nothing. Can you cut our cost? And that was my biggest thing. So how we did it, I essentially, literally, I would have to go door to door and talk and talk and talk, but it was unsuccessful. And what I did in the beginning stages, because we had no name and no reputation at that time, we would literally see how many times their garbage was getting picked up, see what's going in their garbage, estimated just visual estimates, and I would walk in with a check. This is your first month's payment on the stuff that you're throwing in the garbage. This is the money in the garbage that you're throwing. Yeah. And I'd go, this is your first month's payment. They go, what? Like this, I'm like, I estimate these are my photos. This is what I did. This is how many times the garbage truck came and picked up. And you can see the waste truck was the same as the recycling truck. It's because you're dealing with big waste. And as you saw that documentary on CBC or wherever you saw it on YouTube, yeah, because all those companies were waste companies trying to recycle, but it was just greenwashing, right? Essentially, they would either burn it or landfill it. But so then I would explain that to them with photos, with proof of my of our idea of where we could do a profit share model. And it's full transparent. We would tell them this is a 50-50 or a 70-30 or however we're splitting the profits depending on the material that they're producing. And then it would change everything at that moment. And it took me a while to get to that type of confidence to walk in with a check and to even have that idea. But essentially, at first, it was just door to door, and now I have outlets like yourselves where I'm spreading. I have a bigger microphone to speak on because we've been doing this for 11 years, right? So nationally in Canada, we are pretty well known, but we are breaking the glass ceiling also in the US, and kind of trying to do the same thing, but more so with outlet like yours.
Well, thank you so much because that's exactly the intention of this podcast is to highlight business owners like you that are actually doing something good in the
Yes.
world intentionally, which I personally love. So, just talking about the entrepreneur journey then is I love the fact that you recognized early on you had to be the salesperson because as with any business, it always starts with like the solo entrepreneur, the business of one, and it can be very hard to get that confidence up to be able to go business to business like you were. So when you were first meeting with these business owners and you're showing them the checks and everything, you know, what was the conversation after that then as far as like I think what your profit model would look like? Because you're like, okay, at first I had to go business to business, but to go on a larger scale, how were you deciding to expand beyond, business of one, Simmer going out there, flashing checks everywhere? Like, what was that transition then to actually running a company that would sustain itself beyond you?
Correct, correct. So it was literally person by person. Okay, I don't have time to do accounting anymore. Okay, we can we afford a bookkeeper? We hired her, right? Can we afford a marketing department like Nikki now, right? That contacted you, hired her. Yes. Okay, and it was step by step. We're close to 100, more than 100 people now in our main site in Ontario, but it was just one employee at a time. And it grew, it just kept growing and growing, and we're still growing sustainably and at almost a vertical projection, because the word is getting out there now and businesses are talking to each other like we are losing revenue because we're dealing with waste companies. And eventually the waste companies will pivot. And what we ultimately want to do is once they pivot, then we're all on the same playing field. But they can't pivot because they have major investments in landfills. But landfills are filling up quickly. They will transform, which is a good thing overall, right? They must transform. But the reputation that they left behind and the confusion that they left behind will never go away, right? Just with that, for that example, for that investigation that happened, right? So that will never go away. And I tried to change that. Like, no, no, no. Recycling and waste, two totally separate industries, and kind of against they're counteractive. One diverts from landfill, one fills the landfill, right? Or burns. So we try to do that, but our next step is full circularity, right? We're in major talks with some major American companies actually, to take a full circularity approach to things. And for example, it's like your common coffee cup, right? Right now, coffee cups are very hard to recycle due to the plastic liners and all this stuff. So one, we design something that's biodegradable plastic wise that can still hold liquid, everything, which we have. We have that, and that technology's been around forever. It's just not been out there, but we're presenting it. And what we're going to do is collect the recyclables from that company, right? It's going to be major like fibers, like cardboard, paper, things like that. Process it, sell it back to the mills that make the cup, and then the cup goes right back to the person that produced the waste. So full circularity. And that's our next movement and how what we're gonna do. And we are already in the procedure of doing that. It's just time. It's just time and planning and organization, approvals, regulations, all that. But ultimately, that's what an ecosystem is, right? What we waste becomes something and we reuse that waste again. And they would market it as their own thing. So I work with a lot of major brands that market their own sustainability, but it's in the background, it's actually a recycling company like ours doing it. Right. So when you see these companies advertising like net zero, all these things, pure 100% recycled content and all that. It's from us. It's from us. They just have the marketing rights to, of course. But yeah, that's our next big move and our next step to sustainability and full circularity.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do believe there are a lot of businesses out there that are trying to do good and trying to do the whole carbon neutral and everything. But as a consumer, we don't know what any of that means. But when you
Yeah.
say something like you guys actually recycle something that looks like two NFL football fields of waste every month, I think that gives a much better visual to people of like what that impact is. So can you break down for me like what does that recycling look like on a monthly basis for a business? What does that look like for them?
Well, two NFL football fields, imagine we're just taking those segments of property away from landfill, right? So that is not filling contaminating your land and your waterways, everything. So that's taking away the exact amount. So that equals out to be about 10,000 tons a month, right? So it's 10,000 tons a month, or I'd say about 100 truckloads of waste. being diverted from landfills. Um, and that's what we do. And to back to the, I just want to bring this up, is to plastics. Because the problem with plastics really, if you don't mind, I really want to touch on plastics because I know, we're almost out of time and this is one of my key things that I really would like the broad audience to know. And the common consumer is plastics. They are the cancer. They are the seepage from if we're talking landfills, they're the ones that are contaminating our waterways and we're drinking the microplastics and the nanoplastics. If we're talking about burning, the emissions released from burning plastics is worse than a coal plant, and we're breathing that in. And there's studies that show the burning of plastics and the microplastics in our water causing cancer, causing anxiety, even there's stunted growth in certain people, like variety of diseases. So if we could stay away from plastic as a whole, that is the real cure. Metal, fibers, paper, all those glass are endlessly recyclable. Plastic is not. You got 7 to maximum 8 times of recyclability, and then we must either burn it or landfill it. Recycling can't even solve that issue yet. Hopefully, one day we can, but right now, no. So if we could stay away from plastics, that is, if the audience takes away just that today, is what I want to get across. Stop using plastics. It's literally the cancer of the earth, and we're poisoning ourselves by using this something that's just convenient, right? Reusable is the way to go. Um, and just, yeah, overall, do not buy plastic. And I even throw in another fact. Let's say if we want to get rid of a water bottle, right? The common consumer, if we all collectively say, you know what, let's boycott water bottles, which happens, right? Boycotting, things trend and all that. And we go, hashtag no water bottles, right? Plastic water bottles. And as a consumer, as a society, as a community, we boycott it. It only takes 6 weeks for the manufacturer to get that message to change the product. So instead of using plastic, that manufacturer will then use something else, aluminum, glass, anything, because we've boycotted plastic water bottles. And that will be off the shelves within 6 weeks. And
That's
that's how fast
amazing.
it can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing to see that kind of turnaround as far as behavior. Because back in the day, it seemed like the customer adaption of things was much longer. But for all the negativity that social media gets, I for one am still a big proponent that I think it's really helped us a lot as a society learn things that are beneficial and be able to be part of the change. When you're talking about plastics, I don't know if you realize this, but in the US, actually over the past month, there's been a lot of news and articles and segments about that, exactly about how all of these microplastics are in everything, and everybody shows up shocked on TV, like they're like, I can't believe this is happening. And it's like, no, no, we've been talking about this for literally 50, 60, I don't know, even 80 years, about how plastics, every piece of plastic that's created is still in existence, they say, in some
Yeah.
form. So I think you're right as far as like getting that whole behavior to change is really super important. So, with that said, as we're spreading this message of the importance of waste management in conjunction with recycling, in conjunction with the longevity of what we're doing, as a business owner, again, when you are actually sharing these messages, what do you find the most effective way to share your message? Is it through social media? Is it still maybe these one-to-one conversations? Maybe you have in trade, conventions, or how do you really find that people are getting that aha moment?
That's a really good question, and I don't really truthfully know how to answer that because it's so soon. I haven't been on this microphone long enough to have that type of data to tell you what's the best, right? I'm just trying to speak as loud as I can to any outlet that I can, right? And that's it. But maybe like a year down the line, I could tell you that for sure.
Okay, so how about I'll ask you an easier question then, because this really is your field then. For a business, what is the upside for them of recycling, let's say, everything that is in there? Because I know, actually, you know what? Actually, let me go back. Since this is your business, I will say I did notice on your website that you actually now have a calculation tool for them. You're like, this is how we would estimate the cost of of recycling, what it could be for you and the benefit of it too. So take me through what that step-by-step process looks like. If a business reaches out to you, what are they in for?
Yeah, yeah. Our first step is called a waste audit. We walk in, myself or a sales rep or whoever is properly trained for a waste audit, and we would go through everything that you're going through in your garbage. We take it, we'll weigh it, and then after we weigh it, we ask them, hey, is this your average daily weight? Like this is what you throw it every day? Yes. Okay, cool. Multiply it by 365 or maybe 285, depending on their work days, and then tell them aluminum cans were worth this much. Your plastic water bottles were worth this much. All the newspaper and boxes that you're throwing out is worth this much. Now, this is what you have to do to separate it, and this is the procedure that we would need to take to pick it up, which is usually boxes, compactors, balers, things like that, really depending on the volume that they're producing. Present a full proposal to them. We would supply the equipment if needed or the bins if needed. And then from there, they would just start seeing the profits roll in. And also through the same calculator, it would tell them how much water they've saved, how much electricity they've saved, how much landfill space they diverted from. All the data coming right back to them. And we would also tell in a monthly report, tell them where their waste went and what it became. And if they choose to work with the supplier, the manufacturer to buy material back, here's the contacts. So then you guys could be full circular.
Yeah, and that's not only something that would be good for their business, but great for their own marketing as well to really give them those details that then they can share with the public. Because
Yeah.
again, I think there's a lot of just word salad out there that people want to feel like they're doing something good, but in the end, we're all just like, I don't know. I can't see it, so it's somebody else's problem.
No, out of mind has been a big issue in my industry. And the proof is in the pudding. We do full documentations and full transparency in everything, right? So yeah, that's one of our major problems in waste management is out of sight, out of mind. I don't know where it goes, but somebody picks it up and that's it. Okay, like what does that mean though? Like, and so we go into full detail to solve that issue because some people do question where does it go, right? And we explain that to them. And then after we tell them, hey, it's not out of sight, out of mind, this is going to landfills. You think it's recycling, but it's really not. This is where it's going, but we're different than that. We're an actual recycling company, and there's no greenwashing here.
Right. And I know you're in Canada, but I'm sure it's similar to the US. But I did read an article where you had mentioned that, part of what you were finding the opposition was, or even the struggle was a lot of this is political. Like you really had to get more involved with or knowledgeable, I think, about the political process. So can you speak a little bit about what that's been like for you in your area? Like, are you reaching out to politicians or how is that working?
Yeah, so one of the largest lobbyists outside of like pharmaceutical guys and big tobacco and things like that, the third or fourth largest lobbyist companies are from waste companies, right?
Mhm.
And that's how they get the city contracts, they're all that stuff. It's all heavily lobbied. Recycling does not have that at all because we're not recognized as a separate industry. We're recognized within the waste industry. And that has to change. We need our own voice. And that's been a part of my mission as well in Canada. And then soon going to be in the US too, but US is a little bit harder because there's a lot more money at play there, right? So, but in Canada, it's a little bit less, not to say that it's any easier. It may be harder because we are the same thing, a democratic state, but that's one of our biggest glass ceilings that we have to break through. It's to get the message to the decision makers in the cities, in the political field, saying, hey, we're a separate industry. Yes, we may not have the pull or the money power as big waste, but this is the right thing to do, right? To have recycling as a voice and an option for the cities, right? That's one of my goals as well, outside of the circularity, is to get a city contract to prove our point and to make the taxpayers have the same profit model. Hey, house number 32 on Smith Street, you produce this much recycling, and this is how much you could get off your energy bill. Maybe, right? Those are all ideas, but these ideas fall at the wayside if you're not giving the money that these lobbies and everything that's happening. So maybe the voice of the public could be loud enough on this movement, and the people that are public servants realize this and just want to do the right thing.
Yeah, and again, I'll bring up the whole social media thing. I mean, if we can get people more talking about exactly what you said on social media, like you said, we could see a conversion quicker than before within a couple of weeks. Hopefully, that people would actually be, standing up saying, "Yeah, I think our community should be involved in that." Now, luckily, being in the LA area, a lot of our, conversations do revolve around environmental things and being green and making sure our businesses are in alignment with, where the way we think our future should be going. But I do think we still need a lot more education for these business owners about what it financially means impact wise for them to be a part of this. And I like that you're tying some kind of profit number to it because it makes it easier for them to say, oh, well, this is why we would do it. Because again, you're right. The lobbyists that are out there, especially in waste management, really have a very strong hold in there. And in the US specifically, I know I'm not telling anything you don't know, but that's kind of one of the histories is that our waste management didn't always have the best, I think, pedigree. A lot of it was mob owned. A lot of it was coming from organized crime owned. I am only speaking to what I know from watching The Sopranos, although I did grow up in Philadelphia, so I'm fairly knowledgeable on the way that stuff works. But I can see how you're really still coming up to a lot of brick walls against that because there is so much money in it. And again, it becomes how do we change behavior if people are still just focused on profit? And again, I'll bring up things like the silo. Hopefully, we will see things like that and say, yes, we do need to be circular at all times because there is no way. And what are we going to do? Just pack our entire planet with garbage and then all get on a rocket ship to Mars? I think
Exactly.
sometimes
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
people's solution. They're like, I'll just leave the planet.
Yeah, yeah, out of sight, out of mind. Literally, we'll fly away. But no, no, no.
Yeah.
But that's not the solution. This is, I believe, our next major problem, right? I think waste management will be our next major problem because we don't realize it yet, but we have, remember, more plastic than fish in the ocean, right? So this will soon become something that's mainstream and a problem maybe too big to solve at that point. But I don't wish that it gets to there, but hopefully, we can solve it before that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have a quick question here. What are some because we've been talking about businesses a lot, but on like the personal side, just, consumers in general, what are some of the everyday items that people don't realize they can be recycled or repurposed?
That really depends on the city you land in, but let's talk LA, right? Let's talk LA. So in LA, what you'd probably not realize is coffee cups, right? Coffee cups, if as long as you take off the aluminum off the top, like the foil, and you separate the actual plastic and wash it out, boom, recyclable, right? But together, no, you can't. It can't be recycled, right? But if you separate it, very recyclable. That's something that we worked on with some major brands to get it to our facility and recycle, right? What else? Remember, always wash out, your jars and things like that. Crush the cans, crush the bottles. Um, those are some key takeaways there. And other things, I don't know, other things other than that, like it's pretty straightforward, right? But is it really, again, in your city, is it really getting recycled? No, the data says 80% of your recycling is going to landfill. But again, that's not because there's a recycling problem. That's because it's a handling problem because we're dealing with the wrong type of company.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will let you know. I do know my city leaders in West Hollywood personally, and I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with them one on one to get this conversation going. Because I think, honestly, they'd be very interested in meeting a gentleman like you that is solving this problem that, they think that they have been solving. But I can tell you right now, from looking at our recycling bins in behind my apartment building, that this stuff is sludge, and I do not see how any of it's getting recycled. And I'll also call out my own neighbors. They really need to rinse stuff out better because I'm like, I don't understand why you would throw something away dirty when if you're even putting it in the recycling bin, like, what are you thinking? Somebody else is going to just rinse it out? Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of work to be done there, but I do love that there are people like you that have already started thinking about this for the future, not only for yourself, because you're like, look, you guys are not looking at the long game here. So I'm going to
Yeah.
help you figure that out. So first of all, thank you personally that, and thank you secondly for, spending so much of your time and your energy and your own personal, I think equity in doing this, because without guys like you, what are we going to do? We're all going to live in a silo and we're going to lock ourselves in there and realize we don't have enough stuff. And then we're like, oops.
That's it. And Stephanie, to almost maybe end it, whatever, we're thinking of coming to Bakersfield soon, right? So we're looking at expansions into Bakersfield, California, not far from LA. And we're looking. We will be in America soon.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. As we all know, from start to finish as an entrepreneur, it's always a labor of love. So thank God you stuck in there because, like I said, when I was introduced to you, and yes, it was through Nikki, I was like, oh my God, he is doing what I have been sitting there saying. Are we doing anything about this? So you answered my question. Yes, at least Simmer is out there starting to tackle this very big problem because I, for one, do not want to be the cause of any more earth decimation that's already going on. And if in small part our conversation has helped other people to think of this, well, then we are also doing our job. So with that said, thank you, Simmer, for being on the show. You have been a wealth of knowledge, and I truly enjoyed talking to you.
Oh my God. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Wow Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.